Good afternoon. It is the Forest Nutritionist. Welcome to my channel. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a wholesome homemade beef stew. I'm going to use my crock pot. I did have a bigger one, but it kind of blew up, so I'm borrowing this one off of my mother-in-law. Thank you, Maureen. And while I'm making this stew for you guys, while we're going through the process of making the stew, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about macronutrients. So first of all, what I'm going to put in my stew is just basically whatever I have in my fridge. And like I've already said before, I don't have any recipes really that I follow. I just try and use wholesome ingredients and go from there. There's no magic science to eating healthy. There's no magic pill. There's no quick fix. You just need to make mindful decisions about what you're putting in your body. You got to think about, okay, is this going to serve me a purpose other than an immediate satisfaction or fix? If it's not, you got to really look at your goals and decide, do I need that? Or am I just eating it because I think I need it? So that is the way I kind of stick to my goals. But so this is sweet potato. It is, well, it's pretty well the whole thing. That's going to be the base of my stew. I love sweet potato. Sweet potato in any way, shape, or form is absolutely delicious. I love it mashed. I love it in my breakfast with my oatmeal. I love it in stews and soups. It's just good stuff. So there's a sweet potato. Here I have a little bit of chives. I'm getting them everywhere. Those are from my little herb garden. I'm just going to cut them up and add them in there. I got to use them up because they're starting to go into bloom now, and I think they're lived out their life. I have a little bit of a tomato here that I'm going to cut up and put in there. Just, it'll probably dissolve. But basically a stew is just kind of like use up what you have in your fridge to get rid of because it's delicious. And I love onions, so I use a lot of onions in everything that I do. Cut them up. Like, I know that there's some stew recipes out there where you got to saute this and you got to saute that and add this and measure that and do that, but that's not the way I roll. I just throw shit in. I got carrots. Like I said, I'm using up the stuff that I have in my fridge. Oh, I got some onion in my eye. Oh, I heard a funny tip the other day. Actually, not the other day. It was quite a while ago. If you're cutting a lot of onions, if you have a piece of bread and you just put it in your mouth, it'll absorb all that stuff that comes out of your onion and it won't get into your eyes. And I actually did that day. What was I doing? Oh yeah, we had a tattoo artist at our place. We had a tattoo party and his wife was there helping him, and she actually mentioned that just put a piece of bread in your mouth. So I did that, and surprisingly I didn't get any of that onion stuff into my eyes. It actually worked, because what I was doing was I was cutting up a whole bunch of onions for egg salad sandwiches or something, and I was just sitting there crying, and she's like, oh, do this. And it worked. I mean, you kind of look ridiculous because you got a piece of bread hanging out of your mouth, but whatever. For that amount of onions, I did it. So now I'm putting in some really kind of soggy looking celery, but it's going in stew, so who cares? So I just chop that up. Celery adds a wonderful flavor to anything that you're doing, and it's so good for you. So I love celery. So I'm cutting up all my vegetables first. Ooh, I'm not gonna put that end in there though, that's kind of nasty. And I'm putting it all in first because I don't want to wash my cutting board after I cut the meat. So this is broccoli, cutting all that up too. I even use the ends of the broccoli because it's just so good. So many nutritional things in there. And finally, I'm gonna put in my beef. And I don't know if you can see this. My little pot's too full. I need to go out and buy myself a new crock pot. So I just have a little bag of stewing beef that I took out of the freezer and defrosted. And it comes in great big hunks like this, but I'm not gonna put it in there in those big hunks. So I'm just gonna cut it up into smaller pieces and stick in there. So anyways, while I'm cutting this up, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about macronutrients. And unless you're like into fitness, bodybuilding, stuff like that, you may not have heard what a macronutrient is, or you may have never even heard that. Or you've heard it and never really known what people are talking about at the gym or whatever. So a macronutrient, anyone know what that is? It is basically 3 of the things that we eat. It's carbohydrates, it's fats, and it is proteins. Now, the one that I'm going to focus on today is carbohydrates. The big myth, carbohydrates, they're bad. No, people, they're not bad. Carbohydrates are good for you. They are a major macronutrient. They are our body's main source of energy. So how can they be bad, you say? Well, I'm not going to get in a debate about low carb diets, keto, and all that kind of stuff because, well, that's a whole other story for a different day. But all I'm going to say is if you're doing low carb, make sure that you're being monitored by a health physician, a nutritionist or dietitian or somebody, doctor, that can actually monitor whether you're getting the nutrients that your body requires. So just because Sally or Bob, I'm just throwing names out there, and if you are a Sally or a Bob, I'm not isolating you out here or calling you out. I'm just, those 2 names popped in my head. Just because a keto diet worked for them, that doesn't mean it's going to work for you or for your friend or your spouse or whatever. It's different for everybody. So, like I said before, carbohydrates are your body's preferred source of energy. There's 2 types of carbohydrates. There's simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. To break that down into more understandable terms, what I'm putting in the stew would be complex carbohydrates. And these are the kind of carbohydrates that you want in your diet. They're things like legumes, beans, vegetables, stuff like that, nuts. Those are all carbohydrates that are good for you. And the reason why they're ideal, especially if you're trying to lose weight, is because they absorb and digest very slowly so that you feel full a long time and you're satisfied and you're not craving for stuff. So that is really a key element in weight loss, because who wants to be hungry all their lives? I sure as heck don't, because I am not a very nice or fun person to hang around when I'm hungry. There's a terminology and it's called hangry, and I get it that way very quickly if I don't eat properly. I'm clearly gonna need another pot. This isn't gonna work. So, back to carbohydrates. I have sweet potatoes in there, which is a complex carbohydrate. I've got broccoli, I'm gonna put barley in, I'm gonna put lentils in, all that kind of stuff, which is amazing for keeping you full and keeping you hydrated and satisfied. I'm gonna put in maybe a quarter cup of barley. My dogs are going crazy out there. And then in here I have some dehydrated lentils. I had done all these for my Appalachian Trail hike, so I have so much dehydrated food. So I just need to use them up. So lentils are a great source of protein and they're delicious. So I'm just gonna dump a few of them in there. And because normal hiking, I'm never gonna go through all this dehydrated food that I had. And then I also have more. I've got bags and bags of this dehydrated vegetable that I made up. It's got broccoli, peas, carrots, all that kind of stuff. Just gonna dump a bit of that in there as well. All these are complex carbohydrates as well. And what am I going to season this with? I'm gonna get a little bit of beef broth, because obviously I need a liquid. And I'm gonna add a tablespoon of this in, mix it up. Now, I try not to use too much of this kind of stuff because this is really high in sodium, but you do need a little bit. Like, okay, so this is crazy. 630 milligrams of sodium in 1 teaspoon. I don't want to put it in my stew. That's terrible. But I think that that is something that I need to maybe look out for and try and find an ulterior option. So I need a bigger pot to start this in. Oh God. I guess I know what I'm doing. I'm going to Canadian Tire and I'm going to find myself a new crock pot because I can't make my stew in this one. Let's see if I can do this without getting it all over the place. Maybe I can start it in the pot and then put it in the crock pot after. So I need more water. So I put in 1 of those. I'm not going to put any more in. So obviously it's not 638 grams of sodium in 1 serving. It's in the whole thing. So distributed it over several meals, it won't be as bad, but still that's a lot of sodium in 1 tablespoon. So then I just put in as much water as I need to get this cooking. Maybe a little more. And then for flavor, I like to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Fuck. Who comes up with these names? Anyways, I swear they're just tongue twisters for me. And then I have turmeric. Turmeric is amazing. It gives such a good flavor for everything. I'm just gonna put a little bit in there. It adds a nice color too to your soups and stews. Once again, I'm not measuring anything. Curry spice, a little bit of that. Add some flavor to my food. And last but not least, garlic powder. Got to put some of that in there. Lots of garlic powder. Keep the vampires away. So now I have a delicious looking stew. Like, wow. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but that is going to be delicious. So let's get this on a stove. And we will start cooking it. And then I'll have to transfer it after into my little thing, and hopefully it'll work well. So that is basically a healthy vegetable beef stew that will probably do me for, like, I'm gonna say 5 or 6 meals in there, and I can add things like maybe even just a piece of garlic toast with it, which is to make it better. But that's all that I have to say about the stew. So we're gonna leave that cooking. So I was talking about the macronutrients. So the complex carbs is a nutrient that we're gonna talk about right now. I've already mentioned that you want stuff that is less processed and stick with the whole foods. So these are slow digesting, they're high in fiber, things like fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, legumes. It keeps us full longer. Some examples would be brown rice, sweet potato, nuts, fruits and vegetables, oatmeal, barley, stuff like that. And there's no set amount of the percentage for carbohydrates on how much you should eat, or how much your neighbor should eat, or your spouse should eat, because the percentage is based on how big or small you are, how active you are, how old you are, and what stage of life you're in, and your intake of other nutrients, and what your goals are. So carbs are made of fiber, starch, and sugar. Fiber and starch are complex, and sugar is obviously simple. So depending on how much of each of these is found in a food will determine your nutrient quality of it. So simple carbs, those are the bad ones, quote unquote. They would be things such as baked treats, fruit juice concentrate, breakfast cereals, stuff like that that's high in sugar, like Fruit Loops and all that kind of stuff. Like, just because it says it's got this in it, you really need to look at the ingredients that are in there. If sugar or fructose or glucose or whatever is the first ingredient, just throw it in the garbage. Leave it on the shelf, because that's not going to do anything for you or your children. Our taste buds are very adaptive to what we put in our bodies. So if you're eating a lot of sugar, you're going to crave a lot of sugar. And the simple carbs they're refined, they're highly processed, they digest super fast, but they still leave us feeling unsatisfied. I know I can attest to this myself, because I've gone to, like, McDonald's, for example, and I mean, oh, it's so good. And don't get me wrong, I love McDonald's French fries. They're like the bomb. They're like my favorite thing in the world. Okay, but they digest super fast, and then you just want more because you're unsatisfied. They're stripped of nutrients. There's nothing left in them. And simple carbohydrates are often paired with something with high sodium in it. These things stimulate our appetite and leave us craving more. They also cause fluctuations in our blood sugars and insulin levels. So how can that be good? It's not. So that was just my little cheat sheet of carbohydrates so that I wouldn't forget to leave something out. But a key thing that I tell my clients is when you're going grocery shopping and you're looking for good ideas of what you can buy that's healthy and the right thing, stay on the outside of the grocery store. Like not outside, but when you go in, most grocery stores are set up in a way. Now there is one in St. John that's a little weird. It's kind of round altogether. I don't even go there because I get confused. I think it's the Sobeys Express one. It's by Costco and it's just kind of a little weird. I'm not used to it. And then if I don't know where my stuff is in the grocery store, it's just chaos. So stick to the outside sections of the grocery store. They're the sections that have your produce, like your vegetables and fruits. I think breads are on the outside, but try and go for whole grain breads, multi-grain breads, like rye bread, stuff like that. That would be considered a complex carbohydrate versus your white breads and white buns and stuff like that that's made with refined white flour and sugar. Those kind of things aren't any good for you. And the meats are on the outside, your dairy's on the outside. Everything that's in the middle aisles is your processed stuff. So you don't want to go in there. You don't want processed sweets and processed stuff like that. That's really no good for anything, and it's not going to help you get to your goals. So that's all I have for today. I'm going to add the stew to the end of the video when it's ready. Let us check and see how our stew is going. It smells amazing. I can't wait to eat it. I'm gonna have some for supper tonight. Oh my God, people. Look at this. Look at that. That is gonna be so good. I wish you could smell how amazing that smells. And look at that. I managed to squeeze it all into the crock pot. So I'm going to leave it in there. It's all mostly cooked. And I'm just going to leave it in there on low for a few hours so the flavors can infuse. I did have to take a little bit out. I put that in a mason jar, and that is going to be my supper tonight. So all of it fit in there, except for that.